In a tight race for the White House, President Barack Obama makes every effort to help secure Hillary Clinton a victory over Donald Trump. UNICEF calls on world leaders to reduce air pollution and reveals the impact of toxic air on the world's children. And meet the adorable new face of artificial intelligence. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Heavy fighting rages in Iraq as the battle for Mosul continues on Thursday. Iraqi troops are moving cautiously through neighborhoods just inside the city limits. Iraqi forces are going house to house to ensure the safety of civilians. The soldiers are being careful not to trigger any booby-trap bombs, as well as being alert for ambushes and sniper fire from Islamic State militants, who are being urged by their leader to remain and resist losing the last major city they hold in Iraq. The breach into Mosul triggered the exodus of hundreds of families to camps located east of the city. Iraqi officials estimate that more than 1 million civilians remain in the city. Islamic State fighters have tried to add to the city's population, and as its fighters withdrew from outlying villages, it forced some families to accompany them as human shields. Meanwhile, in cities and villages outside the front line, some locals say they live in fear. As long as militants control the provincial capital, nowhere in the area is safe. VOA's Heather Maddock reports from Bartella in Iraq.
Soldiers say civilians are trapped in the battle zones, and they are fighting IS militants on the streets. The next phase of the struggle for Mosul is coming soon, and soldiers say it is expected to be long and dangerous for everyone involved.
IS techniques are suicide bombs and explosive cars, which are dangerous for everyone. But we want to liberate Mosul, and our soldiers are well trained.
As towns and villages surrounding Mosul are recaptured, a world of destruction is revealed. Shops and homes are in rubble, windows are shattered, and shell casings are scattered on the streets. There is no running water or electricity in this town, but residents trickle in to see what has become of their homes.
It
has been 2 years since we've seen our homes and our city, and we are tired of being refugees. It is not just our house that was destroyed, it is the whole city.
Vehicles with white flags are appearing at refugee camps, carrying families fleeing the battle zones. The International Organization for Migration says more than 20,000 people have been displaced since the offensive began more than 2 weeks ago, and as many as 1 million more are expected. But many displaced families say if their suffering is necessary to destroy IS, they have no choice but to pay the price. Heather Murdoch, VOA News, Bartella, Iraq.
Kenya is threatening to withdraw its troops from the UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan after the United Nations sacked Kenyan Lieutenant General Johnson Magoa Kimani-Ondieki, who led the force and was accused of not responding to an attack on a hotel in Juba in July. A UN inquiry accused the force of failing to respond to the attack on hotel terrain despite multiple requests. A UN inquiry also found that during the assault by South Sudanese government troops, civilians in the hotel were subjected to and witnessed crimes including murder, intimidation, sexual violence and torture. Ban Ki-moon, the UN Secretary General, expressed alarm at UNMISS failures and says he had asked for immediate replacement of Ondieki. The Kenyan government has rejected the findings of the inquiry, and the UN has not received any official communication from Kenya.
We have not been officially appraised of any of these decisions. We obviously value the contributions of the Kenyan soldiers and police officers in South Sudan and throughout peacekeeping. There are a bit over 1,000 Kenyans currently deployed in various places in South Sudan. We will wait to get some official notification before commenting further. But I would add that I think the report does address issues, much broader issues, with the mission.
Well, the special investigation also found that command and control arrangements were inadequate. Well, South African opposition leader Mmusi Maimane said Thursday Parliament will debate a motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma on November the 10th. This follows a report by the anti-graft watchdog over allegations of influence peddling. In a newly released report, South Africa's anti-graft watchdog is calling for a judge to investigate allegations of influence peddling in President Jacob Zuma's government. Thousands of protesters are also calling for the president to step down. The report, titled State of Capture, is likely to add to pressure on Zuma by demanding a full inquiry within 30 days. President Zuma denies providing special favors for wealthy friends, including three brothers who run a business empire from media to mining. Now, violence spilled onto the streets of the Kenyan capital on Thursday as police beat anti-corruption protesters with batons and fired volleys of tear gas to disperse demonstrators marching towards the nation's parliament. Hundreds of protesters rallied in Nairobi in response to reports in the local media and accusations by the opposition about graft and abuse of funds in public health care. The latest protest was triggered by opposition claims that President Uhuru Kenyatta's government has abused public funds in healthcare, a charge the health ministry denies. Mr. Kenyatta is expected to seek a second term in next year's election and has made a campaign pledge to clamp down on corruption, but his opponents say he has failed to stop high-level graft. Now, Botswana has a reputation for political stability, democracy, sound economic management, and good governance. It's a view shared by international financial institutions, Freedom House and Transparency International, and even academics. So what makes Botswana tick and what challenges does it face? For some insight, I'm joined today by David Newman, Botswana's ambassador to the United States. Ambassador Newman, welcome to Africa 54. It's a delight to have you here with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So first we have to make it clear, you're Botswana's ambassador to the United States.
To the United States,
many people look at
not
you and
the other
think,
way around. A mistake has been made before.
Yeah, but again, that tells us about the story of Botswana, right?
It does.
Yes.
Very much so. Our country, our founding fathers were concerned to create a multiracial society. Of course, all around us there wasn't a multiracial society. Indeed, there was a belief that a multiracial society in Africa couldn't exist. And I think our first president was one of his main missions as president was to show that it could exist, and indeed that is why our flag reflects the black and the white of racial harmony, and I'm an example of
that's
a product
beautiful.
of that.
That's beautiful. Now, the country has continued to enjoy this reputation of being very progressive, economically stable, has resources, its national and natural resources really well managed. What has been the blueprint, or what was the blueprint that has ensured particularly economic growth, progress, and political stability?
Yeah, you're right that Botswana is richly endowed with natural resources, but again, many other countries, not only in Africa, but beyond, are as well. But what have we managed to do to, in fact, get the right recipe, if you like? And I think one of the key reasons is that there's always been a belief from day one that those resources belonged to the people of the country and to future generations, that whether it was in 1967 when diamonds were discovered or 2016, 50 years later, as we celebrate 50 years of independence, it's premised on the belief that we are mere custodians and that the benefits that are obtained from those resources must go into the development of the country. And that is indeed what has transpired.
Which is admirable, because in many African countries, those resources tend to benefit those in the ruling class. Now, we know that Botswana has perhaps one of the best social safety networks. It has apportioned quite a big chunk of its budget, national budget, to making sure everybody enjoys a good life. But still, we do get reports that there are some in Botswana who really live in extreme poverty, especially those who live in the rural areas. What is it that Botswana has not been able to do to make sure that everybody, it's a population of about 2 million people, has a good life and does not live in poverty?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment to make, that great strides have been taken to spread the wealth that has been obtained across the board, but there are challenges. We are a country of 2.2 million people, but we're also a country the size of Texas. So there are a lot of fairly remote communities lacking, obviously, basic infrastructure, electricity, access to water. And these are some of the challenges that we are looking to...
Now, with diverse resources, how is it that the country hasn't managed actually to resolve those issues over this time?
Well, it's, every country has challenges and every country has priorities as well. Mm-hmm. Poverty alleviation is one that we are aware of, we're working on, and the inequality that exists. Yeah. The vast majority of the citizens of the country are benefited, but there are those who are still falling through the cracks, and it is a priority that the government is working on.
Now, we talk about Botswana, we always talk about diamonds, but diamonds may be forever, but they may not exist or be found in Botswana forever. Yes. What is the country doing to ensure that it diversifies?
Retail branding of diamonds are forever. We are aware that they are finite. Fortunately, we believe that with new reserves discovered as well, that the lifespan will continue for longer than was expected at one stage. So there's no immediate concern, but nevertheless, it's an area that the government has been focusing on to diversify beyond the diamond sector. Not beyond the mineral sector, there are other minerals there, but beyond the diamond sector as well. And that's an area that we are focusing on, and really to create job. We have a growing youth, as Africa does across the board, and we have an educated youth as well. And as you rightly mentioned earlier, that much of our budget goes into education and to public health. As a result, people are living longer, and in terms of mortality rates in childbirth and for under fives, it has come right down as well. So these are challenges. They're good challenges to have in the sense that we have a growing population, but we need to find employment for them, and that's the area that we are trying to focus on.
Thank you. And now, well, Botswana still enjoys that reputation of being a very democratic country. It has continued having regular elections that kind of seem to be peaceful. But the opposition has, over time, including the last election, complained of being harassed. In fact, there was even a death of the opposition member, Gamilon Mochwaledi, which was seen almost as suspicious. Now, how do you describe the current situation in terms of the participation of the opposition in the election?
Right. I won't dwell on that one particular issue, but I think that was a conspiracy theory. It was a natural motor accident, and nothing more has come years later from the investigations that were carried out there. But the point is, I think that the opposition has a voice in terms of the media. In terms of the print media, for example, generally those are controlled by the opposition parties in the main. So, and the opposition parties actually did well in the last elections, and increased the number of representatives within Parliament. So,
that's good. Very quickly, you sit in a region where there is fairly political concerns in some of those countries. How can Botswana play a critical role, a vital role in influencing the countries in the neighborhood? You're talking about South Africa, you're talking about Zimbabwe and others. Yeah,
this is a very important issue going forward, because the strength of Botswana, and indeed other countries within the SADC region, the 15 countries of SADC, it's based on regional integration, regional industrialization. We can't go it alone. We really need to be creating an EU within Southern Africa, and to strengthen those relationships, to work across boundaries, whether it's in relation to our natural resources, whether it's in relation to economic issues. That is the future, and that's one area that I think we are trying to focus on with a number of our neighbors as well, to have value added. Our diamond industry being one, as you know, that previously it was an extractive industry. Now the Diamond Trading Company has moved from London, set up in Botswana, so now we have cutting, polishing, jewelry manufactured within the country, within the region. It's those sort of initiatives that I think have proved successful, strong partnerships that we're looking to grow with our neighbours.
Well, Ambassador Newman, thank you very much.
Thank you
For your perspectives and insights. Well, that's Ambassador David Newman, of the Republic of Botswana to the United States. Well, on the campaign stamp for Democrat Hillary Clinton, U.S. President Barack Obama called Republican rival Donald Trump a con artist and temperamentally unfit to be president. Mr. Obama also criticized FBI Chief James Comey for reviving the issue of Clinton's emails in what could be interpreted as an attempt to influence the election. Meanwhile, Trump is vowing to repeal Obamacare if he becomes president. VOA's Zlatitsa Hoke has more.
Speaking at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, Obama acknowledged Americans' frustration with the ugliness of the current presidential campaign.
I want you to push away the noise for a second and just focus on the choice you face in this election.
Obama told voters if they think clearly, their choice can only be Clinton. He portrayed Trump as a shady business dealer, lacking compassion for disadvantaged Americans and lacking qualifications to lead a democratic country.
We can't afford a president who suggests that America should torture people or that we should ban entire religions from our country. We deserve better than a commander-in-chief who insults POWs or attacks a Gold Star mom or denigrates our troops.
The president also took a swipe at the Republican Party, which currently controls both chambers of Congress.
They didn't work with me when I took office, even when we were trying to save folks' jobs and prevent a depression. Even when they control the Senate and the House, they have trouble passing their own stuff. And so they just resort constantly to gridlock and obstruction and threats to shut down the government and wreck the economy if they don't get their way. That's not how democracy works. That's not what your parents taught you.
In a television interview with the Now This news channel, the president also criticized the FBI chief for announcing that the agency is examining thousands of emails found recently on a private computer of a top Clinton aide.
I do think that there is a norm that, when there are investigations, we don't operate on innuendo, we don't operate on incomplete information, we don't operate on leaks.
Trump, for his part, took a hit at Obama and promised to dismantle his legacy if elected.
And the last thing we need is another 4 years of Obama. It's the last thing. And this will be worse. That means ISIS, that means high taxes, that means bad health care, that means no border. Without a border, we don't have a country.
Trump campaigned in Florida Wednesday, the southern state he acknowledged he has to win for a chance to become president. Zlatitsa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, the deadly impact of air pollution on the world's children. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lina Mudu with a look at air pollution and its effect on children. Lina.
New findings from UNICEF shows that nearly 300 million children, nearly 1 in 7 on the planet, are affected by outdoor air pollution. The report, Clear the Air for Children, says satellite imagery confirms that around 2 billion children live in areas where outdoor air pollution caused by factors such as vehicle emissions and heavy use of fossil fuels breach the World Health Organization's minimum air quality guidelines. It says South Asia is most affected, with 622 million children in these areas, and Africa has 520 million. UNICEF says outdoor and indoor pollution are linked to conditions such as pneumonia and other respiratory diseases, which account for nearly 1 in 10 deaths of children under 5. In part 2 of my interview with Dr. Kofi Derrick Owusu-Boyim today, Associate Professor at Johns Hopkins Medical Institute, we discuss his work in Africa and his newly released book, which relates his journey to becoming a doctor in the United States. Okay, now let's talk about your foundation. What are you focusing on?
Every year I'll go and I'll do 100 surgeries. The next year I go, there's still more 100 patients that I couldn't get to, and I'll go with a big team. So I realized that, yes, you can go and do short trip surgeries, but that doesn't really increase capacity locally. So the foundation, called the Foundation for Special Surgery, our focus is to actually build a facility that trains people locally so that we can get experts trained in Ghana, in Nigeria, from the West African region, Sub-Saharan region, coming to this place and learning something very specialized and keeping it in the area. To me, that's the way that we can make a long-lasting impact.
I was able to read a book that you wrote, the first book where you speak about your personal journey. Very, very fascinating story. What would you say about this book?
I've written a few books. Most of them have been scientific. This was quite difficult to do because you have to change from writing like a scientist to really be a storyteller. The experience has been illuminating to me. It's just seeing where I came from, what my parents taught me, the stories they passed on to me, and how I got to where I am.
However far the stream flows. This is an African proverb, right?
There is an African proverb that however far the stream flows, it never forgets its source. My dad, when I was leaving Ghana, called me and said, I want to tell you a story that my mom told me. And the story goes this way, that when he was leaving his village, his mother called him to his small clay-thatched hut and told him to look at where she sleeps and said, when you go to the big city, don't forget where your mother sleeps. So do not forget where you started from, so that if you get big, don't let your head get too big.
What would people get out of reading this book?
The first thing I hope people do get out of this is that, one, it's important not to give up on your dreams. Second thing is not to underestimate small acts. Small acts, like somebody just stopping when they were jogging to ask me, what are you going to do next year? That's what my professor did. Or someone and looking at a kid who everybody thought was the village fool, the village idiot, because he couldn't speak properly, just because he had something we call a tight tongue, a thick frenulum, and once you snip it, the kid starts talking again. Small acts like my mom prays for us every morning. Lastly, don't let anybody tell you no.
When you look at your journey and so many young people in Africa dreaming of coming to the U.S. or any other countries where they think they could pursue a career, but they're coming across challenges, what would be your advice to them?
What I would say is that you have to learn to be able to dream beyond your borders, beyond boundaries. To me, initially, when I thought this is what I wanted to do, it seemed like there was a very tall wall, too tall that I could look over. But if you set your sights on what you want to do, along comes people who see the effort you're putting in, and I've had people sort of support me along the way. So what I would tell people who are trying from Africa or from any part of the world is that set your goals higher than you can ever think and just pursue it and make sure that every step gets you closer to that goal.
That's our health report for today. To stay in touch with me, find me on Twitter at Lenore Moudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. Now, be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health updates every Thursday and rather Tuesday and Thursdays right here on Africa 54. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54 is this little robot, the future of smart toys. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Kenya, police beat protesters in Nairobi as hundreds take to the streets against abuse of funds in public health care. In South Sudan, Kenya is to withdraw its peacekeeping troops from a UN mission in the country after a report on the failure to protect citizens in Juba. In Nigeria, Human Rights Watch releases a report accusing state police of raping women and girls displaced by conflict in the northeast. Finally, the Ivorian government forces farmers to leave protected forests, not giving them enough explanations and leaving thousands homeless. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick. Here's a look at what is trending. Glamour magazine's annual Women of the Year list has stirred controversy in the past, and 2016 is no different. The magazine announced that activist and U2 lead singer Bono will be the first man to make the list. So why him? Well, last year, Bono and his One campaign launched a Poverty is Sexist movement. In a letter to world leaders, Bono and numerous other celebrity signers called it an outrage that girls account for 74% of all new HIV infections among adolescents in Africa. And finally, could this little robot be the next big thing? Well, meet Cosmo. He can solve puzzles and speed games while using machine learning to get to know his user. Led by a Pixar veteran, a full regiment of Hollywood animators was hired to design a machine that you could warm up to. But Cosmo's not just cute, he's also sensitive. If he loses a game, he may become angry or sad and could gloat if he wins. Cosmo also comes with computer vision, which allows him to recognize who he's playing with, along with an array of other sensors, all aimed at sensing his surroundings. Now, cute little angry robot. That's what we need. That is what is trending today. Vincent, it's back to you.
I want that robot. Well, that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa. That's between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to Voice of America's News Words.
This news word has something to do with speed.
Expedite.
Other groups are also working on treatments and vaccines. Researchers at Newlink Genetics in Iowa say they have a vaccine that was 100% effective when given to monkeys. The company received a federal grant to step up its work and expedite human testing.
Expedite. Expedite means to speed up or hurry up a process.
Our story is about the deadly Ebola virus. The U.S. government says the company Newlink Genetics can speed up testing their vaccine on humans.
So the next time you hear the word expedite, you will know what this news word means.